In this video, we're going to look at how to sell more coming out of the lockdown. Hi, I'm Matthew Elwell of the Elite Closing Academy, and in this video, we're going to look at how to sell more coming out of the lockdown. So if this is your first time here, then subscribe to the YouTube channel, and more importantly, ping the notification bell, and I will be genuinely honoured, call me old-fashioned, to get you a free training every Tuesday night, 5 p.m. My top tips for people that want to sell congruently, not feel too pushy. My top tips are to start with this understanding, this critical understanding, that selling, great selling, is asking questions. And what most people start with, in fact 94% of salespeople start whenever they sell telling people what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And that's actually hard selling. When you're telling people about all the features and benefits of your product or service, that, in my view, when you're telling, that is bad selling. Telling is bad selling. In fact, telling is hard selling. When you're telling somebody why they should do something, you're no longer listening to them and what they need. So, in my view, world-class selling is to follow this simple principle. If you're dealing with a world-class human being, ask them a world-class question about what they need, and then wait for a world-class answer. That's how you sell. Great selling is asking great questions. So you've got to understand what your prospect needs. And the five top tips that I'd have for anybody when it comes to world-class selling is, firstly, just stop telling people what you think they need. That's the first thing. Stop telling. Second thing is, ask them what's their biggest challenge. Third thing is, what do they need? Fourth thing is, once you know what they need, get a quantitative answer. Understand when they say, like, we've got this challenge or we've got this need, like, how big a need is it? Perhaps, to give you an example, if you create leads and somebody says, yeah, our biggest challenge in marketing is we don't have enough leads, then rather than jump straight into like telling people all the things about leads, resist telling and listen and ask and say, firstly, let me understand. Thanks for sharing. Let me understand you. When you say you haven't got enough leads, what do you mean? How many leads would you like to get that you're not getting now? What is the average value of a lead? You know, you've got to find out information, and that is selling. That's how you sell, by asking and understanding. You want to get pains, you want to get needs, you want to get a quantitative, wherever possible, make it measurable so you understand how big a pain it is. If you can't get an exact price or if you can't get an exact amount, you can ask a 1 to 10 question. If it's a feeling that somebody's got, let's say you're a coach, a mindset coach or a life coach. You might even be a coach that, or a consultant that helps people, human beings, if they may be suffering with anxiety or stress. It might be that you can't measure in the way you would normally measure. It doesn't impact the bottom line, or it doesn't impact a sale, but it does impact a feeling. You can say, when you woke up this morning, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being you felt really stressed and 1 being you didn't, what number would you give yourself? Even that itself is actually selling by understanding.
Wow.
That is really, really important. And the fifth thing that I'd say, once you've asked lots of questions that are linked to the outcome of us possibly working together, this is called prospecting, using amazing questions. Once you've found all that out, the key thing you need is trust. Trust works both ways between you and your prospect. You need trust, and when you've got those 5 things, that's when it's time to stop selling and to stop asking and to close the deal.
Okay, thank you. That's a lot to take in. If I was going to ask you, as somebody who doesn't like selling, how would you coach me that my first few words or sentences should be? Say if I wanted to sell this laptop, say to you, so how would I go about selling you the laptop?
Yeah, great question. So, how would you do it now?
I'd go, hey, I see you're looking at this laptop. This would be great. It's the top model.
So that's where you got to stop. So you're already telling me all the features and benefits about the laptop. And the place to start is to ask, what is it about this laptop that interested you? How do you think this laptop might be able to get you an even better result than you're getting with the current laptop? Or even better, help me understand, how do you use laptops in your business now? What role does laptop technology play in your business right now? You must ask questions that are linked to your outcome so that the prospect answers of their own accord rather than answers questions having been told. And you remember, when people are telling you, when salespeople tell you about their product and service, they're making assumptions that the information they're giving you is important to you. So you wherever assumption lives, presumption lives. And when you're in assumption and presumption, 94% of salespeople across the world assume that they know what you're looking for. And I believe that becomes a hard sell. I believe that becomes totally, it's not congruent with selling from your heart, not your head. You've got to ask people, what do they need? What do they want? What do you have, whether it's a product or whether it's information or service, that they don't? And by not having it, what impact does it have on the business? That's how you sell. You've got to understand people by asking. So if you're going to sell a laptop, first thing you've got to understand where laptops fall in their business. What are they using for now? What results are they getting using the one that they've got? More importantly, what other aspects of technology do they need that they haven't got now with laptops?
So like an upsell.
Yeah, so
Wow.
not an upsell. It's like we have, like, technology is moving all the time, isn't it? So
Yes.
I've got a laptop at the moment, by the way, that is from the last generation. So my team are going, like, you're the only one who's not on a Mac. So they've now gone ahead and purchased a Mac. So what's on the Mac that's not on the other one, whatever I've got, I don't even know what it is. I'm human to human rather than computers, but my team are obviously enormously into technology and the advantages of it. So the point is we've made a purchase for the Mac because on the Mac it has technology that the product I've got now doesn't have. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's the gap between what I haven't got and the technology that we're buying that gets us even better results, that solves problems because this didn't have certain aspects to it. That's what you make a purchase on.
Gotcha.
That's really important. So 94% of salespeople start with, if I say to anybody who's listening to this right now, if I go, think about your product or service, whatever it is, and I go, right, let's pretend I'm your perfect customer and I want to buy it, and I'm going to buy it, and you've got 60 seconds to pitch it to me. What do you think the first thing 94% of salespeople do?
What I just did, which
Start by telling me what they think I need.
Yes.
And the thing that you must do is start with a question. That's how you sell. Selling is asking powerful, world-class questions. That's selling.
And that's, from what you've just said, it's a much nicer, softer, and more human-to-human interaction.
Yeah. Well, again, I believe, I coach people all over the place. People fly into our training centres, and I hear this all the time, is people go, oh, I'm corporate sales, or I'm business to business, or I deal with, small to medium-sized enterprises, or whatever it might be. The truth is, none of that is true. It's humans that buy from humans. So businesses are people. Just because they've got 4 brick walls around them, they're people. It's the people in the buildings, in the businesses that we do business with. They're the ones you've got to find, the ones that you can connect with, the ones that need what you do, whatever your product or service is. They're the ones you've got to ask questions to. That's how you sell. You've got to find people who need what you solve.
So just on something you just said, I just want to touch. So for the training you give in how to close and how to do sales in a very different way to what sales have been happening in the last 10, 20 years, it really doesn't matter if you are a single person business or a small business or a corporate business, your techniques will work across the board.
100%, because a sales process, whether you sell beans in a market in Jakarta, whether you sell ice in Greenland, or whether you sell Ferraris in New York, the principles are the same. The first thing you've got to find out is, what do people need from you?
Okay.
What do they need? By needing it, what's going wrong? What's the problem? What's the pain? By not having what your product or service does, what are they not getting that they need?
Okay.
That's the first thing. And the only way you can find that out is by asking powerful questions, not assuming you know what they need.
So what will be a good, powerful question to ask?
So a good example of a powerful question from a logical point of view, and just before I put this together, let me just explain. We, a lot of us, let me do something even better than that. Let me ask a question like, how many people do you know that have fear around selling, sales, that goes all the way back to when mum and dad, when you were young, and it was like, oh, you know, save your money, and there's a, you know, at school nobody sort of sits you down and explains how money works. Nobody explains that it's okay to create wealth. It's what you do with it rather than how much you've got that's important. You know, all of this kind of stuff. So many of us have what I call shitty little patterns around money and sales. And when somebody says to you, how much is it? At the beginning of a journey, maybe at the beginning of the prospecting journey, many of us will steer clear of price. Now, what you've got to understand is that it's just the left-hand side of that human being's brain requiring information around price. So me personally, the way I buy is, let's say, so last year I bought an Audi, upgraded from my other Audi. So Kerry and I had done a bit of research on kind of what we thought we might want. We're not absolutely glued to it, but it's just like a feel, you know, kind of feeling. So we've done some research. We got a feel for budget, so what we wanted to spend. Now, again, that was not rigid, so it was kind of like about sort of starting here and up to there, depending on what kind of deal we could get. So it wasn't absolutely stonewall, it's got to be that price, if that makes sense. This is how we buy, you see. And if somebody runs their shitty pattern, how they buy on me, it's going to be different. You see, you got to steer clear of this. So I walked into the car showroom. The first thing that's critical to me as a buyer is I need to know that I'm in the bracket that my wife and I have pre-discussed. Now, if it's just at this end, I'm going to be okay. And if it's just out here, I'm all right. But if it's like miles out, I'm going to waste my time, waste their time. I'm out. So I asked the salesman. I said, that car there, how much is it? Well, how many kids have you got? I said, mate, just fucking tell me the answer. How much is it? What do you need it for? I'm like, how much is it? Well, you know, all depends on the deal. And like, I'm raging. I'm going, my logic brain just needs, because I've already made this decision that as long as I'm in that bracket, we'll then talk about the emotion of it and how many kids we've got and whether we go on long holidays and whether, you know, all of that stuff, because it's a part of making the decision, you see. Now, the salesperson was running his shitty pattern, going, if I tell him the price, he's going to walk out. That's an assumption. The opposite was true. By not telling me the price, I walked out because it was my number one part of my process was, am I in my own budget? Yes or no? That's number one. Now, once, by the way, I did go back once I'd calmed down a little bit and realised what an idiot I was being. But I was really busy and frustrated at the time. I was like, how much is it? Well, it all depends. I'm like, just fucking tell me the answer. So anyway, when I did go back, I said, if that car's in my bracket, then I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about what we need it for and what our aspirations are, and whether we're going to use it for the family or the business, or you see what I mean? And I said, so that one there is kind of something I'm interested in. How much is it? I'm not going to give you the answer because it's not relevant. And he went, oh, it's X, Y, Z. I was like, great. Then I asked him another question. So I've got the bit that I needed. It was in my budget. It was in my bracket. Now it's like, what do you need it for? Great question. Well, I actually want to use it for business. How many business miles are you going to do? 10th, whatever, you know. So now he's planted the approximate price. It's in my bracket. I'm done now with price. I'm going, as long as I can get everything I need and everything I want from this car, and we can kind of make the finance work. I know it's in the right budget. We're in the game. And you see, the first time I went in, by holding the price back, it really frustrated me. So the answer to your question is, somebody should be able to ask any logical question to you, the salesperson, that they want when they're making a decision. So the point that I'm trying to make is really simple. When it comes to asking powerful questions as a salesperson, at the beginning of a sales process, whilst you're prospecting, a cold traffic, at the very beginning, while you're prospecting, you're not closing, you're understanding while selling the products and services by asking. You can ask any logical question that you want, and so can the person that's been sold to, and you should have the answer. How much is it? What are the price options? How long is the service going to take? What happens on the consult? Who's involved with the decision-making process? What are their names? What are their positions? What else? It could be money, it could be date, any data information that's relevant at the beginning of the sales process that you can talk about, answer, ask. What people have to understand is the logical side of the brain has to be full. And whilst you're answering that, by asking powerful questions, you also create emotional trust. And this is like what great selling is, logic and emotion coming together. So let me give you some examples of great questions that you can ask logically as a salesperson. A lot of people, by the way, have a real problem with going, so what's your budget? What's your budget? And that's fair enough. I still believe that you can ask money as a salesperson, can ask questions about money as a salesperson. You can ask questions around, if I was going to get the perfect proposal together for you. See, I'm using like pretend world. If my proposal was perfect, what would the board need to consider financially? What considerations would the board need to see or consider for it to be a great proposal and for my proposal to beat everybody else's?
Wow.
That's a powerful question. Now, it's about how you deliver it, obviously. And, you know, some people might go, well, actually, I don't want to answer that. Cool. You don't want to answer that. Give me a question about finance you do want to answer. Because to get a perfect deal, there's so many things that have got to happen. And let me tell you, you know, the finance has got to make sense. Of course it has. The investment has got to make sense. But other than money, to put value into a deal, once the finance makes sense, throw money away, throw investment away. You've got to then look at, other than the money, give me 5 other reasons why we should do the deal. Other than the money, who else will benefit from doing this deal? What other things other than money do we need to consider now so that when we get to do the deal, it's effortless? Those are powerful selling questions. In this video, we're going to cover the 3 constantly heard fears in the sales process, and more importantly, how you overcome these 3 fears. There's a lot of fear around sales, and that's absolutely fine. I always believe that if you think about it, when something's really important to you, often there's a bit of tension in your body. And I always say, when you're closing a deal, there should be a little bit of tension. And the way, in my training, for example, the best way I can describe it is, think of the first time you went in for a passionate kiss with somebody for the first time. And it's that moment when you go, have I earned the right to go in for the kiss? It's a great analogy, because actually when you're closing a deal, not selling, remember, selling and closing are literally, if you can imagine the sun and the moon, they're 2 totally different skills, okay? It's the same as if you go on a date or if you snog someone, they're 2 totally different skills. When you're on the date, you've got to ask, understand, flirt a little bit, get to know each other. When it comes to the kiss, you just got to get in there. And sales and closing exactly the same. So the best analogy I can give is that moment when you go in for the first kiss, you're like, have I earned the right to get a snog? And actually that moment, that bit of tension, is really powerful. It's helpful. Your heart beats a little bit harder. Call me old-fashioned, but the blood's pumping all over the body, if you know what I'm saying. And that creates a great moment. Closing a deal is exactly the same. It should be a great moment. It should be a big moment for them. It should be a big moment for you. And it should be a big moment for the universe. It should have been done properly, all the way from the beginning. And I teach something called the 3 Ps. Purposeful, professional, and persistent. That's what makes a great salesperson, and that's what makes a great sales process with a close. So the answer is, there's a lot of fear knocking about, of course. Let's flip it round. When you've got purposefulness, professionalism and persistency based on somebody needing what you do, somebody needing your product or service, and more importantly, if they don't get what you do, it's going to hurt them in some way, or it's going to affect their results in some way. When you're in that mindset, you feel more duty bound to overcome some shitty little fears that we may or may not have. And in fact, look, it's perfectly reasonable as a human to have some fear of rejection. By the way, my personality profile is high influence with low compliance. So my biggest love in life are people. What's my biggest fear? Rejection from people. So I often walk this tightrope of, I'm right at that moment when it feels like it's going really well, but they might say no. And my advice is, when you're at that point, as long as you've followed purposefully the prospecting journey, as long as you've had a great date and been honest and open and transparent and real, then you've got to push through your fear and go in for the kiss. You've got to push through your fear of rejection and remind yourself, because you've understood your prospect, they've got pain, they need what you do, you trust each other, it's fairly urgent. If they don't handle it, or if they don't solve it, things are going to go wrong or get even worse or not change for the better. So when you're in that mindset, if fear does expose itself or does rise, then I find that the best thing to do is to replace that hindering thought with something much more helpful and push through and use the tension, like that passionate kiss, to your advantage. And that is a really powerful message to people out there who have a fear of sales.
That's great. I'll try and remember that one. That's a great way of doing it. So what's your views around fear of looking stupid or silly when you're doing the sale, or saying the wrong thing?
Yeah, great. Another great question. So let's take saying the wrong thing. The fear of saying the wrong thing is, again, totally natural, totally understandable. The first thing you can do is educate yourself. This is one of the things that I teach in my academies, what I teach now, is having a script, having a system to follow, having powerful questions that you can fall back on during a conversation. That all really helps. You see, uncertainty comes from being uncertain. So how do you combat uncertainty? Is get certain in yourself. Have all the information about your product or service that you need. Be clear on what brought people towards you in the first place. Have a clear outcome whenever you're discussing your products, your services, whenever you're in a conversation. All of this is mindset stuff, and here's the answer. This is a choice. All of the fears come from within us, not from outside of us. And this is a choice, so you can educate yourself, you can train yourself, and by being prepared, by being clear, by having clarity, by believing in your product and service, when a fear comes, you can replace that natural fear with a much more helpful intention. And I believe having a helpful intention in sales is a game changer, and it all comes from certainty within ourselves. So just remember, fear comes from within, certainty comes from within. And if you think about what happens if I say the wrong thing, if you're going through that, then go to the nearest window, have a look outside and see if you can see, I'm saying the wrong thing, police. There's no one there other than yourself that judges whether you're saying the right thing or the wrong thing. If you're on a date, what's the wrong thing to say? Well, you don't know until you've said it. What's the right thing to say? You don't know until you've said it. Selling is exactly the same. It has to be natural. Just got to be yourself. And look, no one has ever said to me, like, what are you talking about? Shut up. That's horrible what I'm selling, because we're intelligent things. We're natural. When we're being natural, we're being ourselves, we're super sensitive to the other people. We're designed to understand information around us, not just black and white written information. We're affected by light, we're affected by sound, we're affected by movement. You've got to allow all this to come into play when you're selling. It's like, just trust yourself a little bit more, be natural, and you'll get it right. The point is, if you do make a mistake, and by the way, I've made 1,000 mistakes in my life, in conversation, in sales. The thing to do is go, let me just stop myself there, and let me ask you a better question.
That's a good way of reframing.
I do it all the time. Sorry, that was a rubbish question. Let me ask you a better one. And people are like, yeah, no problem. You say sorry to somebody. Look, I'll be honest, let me start again. I got that one wrong. Let me ask you a better question. They'll be all right. They'll be all right. People are fine with it. I teach a strategy about, when somebody sort of says, look, I'd love to work with you, but I'm out. It's not the right time. Again, you have a sort of an opportunity here to say, I understand it's not the right time. I get it's not the right time. And now we know it's not the right time. Let's pretend it was the right time. What's the first action we take if it was? There's another example of me making a choice internally. I can either fear that, do you know what, it's I'd love to, but it's not the right time, and go into fear and uncertainty, or I can use the future and creative thinking that doesn't exist through choice and skill and technique to get understanding of, like we've been talking all the way through, and now all of a sudden you've chucked in it's not the right time. Fine, it's not the right time. Let's pretend it was the right time. What do we do next? So this is all a choice from within that we can make.
Gosh, that is a very nice way. So your future referencing, and then possibly go back to them in the future for the sale when the right time is there for them.
There's no right or wrong. There's no police judging how you congruently sell and prospect and serve and close. There are no police. You can't get arrested for getting back to people. You can't get arrested for talking about your product. You can't. It's actually not possible, in my view, to say something that's wrong, other than if you're bloody rude. That would be wrong, And that's not selling. That's called the rules of the jungle. That's like, if we all went round in our lives and said the first thing that was in our head, the world wouldn't be a great place. So, we've already got these rules in place, and they're like, there's no, are there any rules in place, police? They're human to human rules that we use, that we live by. Some people push it, some people don't. Selling is about being congruent, natural. Just be yourself, and have no fear of asking powerful questions. In fact, ask more powerful questions. The more you ask, the better.
Right. What's your view on the fear if you are selling your product and somebody goes, oof, wow, oh no, that's just too expensive for me?
Yeah.
How would you handle that fear?
So again, I think it all depends on where we are on the prospect journey. So the question is, what happens when people say, oh, that's too expensive? The first thing I'd challenge, if you are dealing with somebody who's making a decision on money alone, you're going to have a lot of problems. We all know that the money side is an important part, but it's not the only part. It's about the result that people get. People pay for the result. Let me give you an example. If I walked out this door right now and an aeroplane was going overhead and a wheel dropped off the aeroplane and landed on my leg and broke my leg, and it was a terrible break, let's hope it doesn't. It's possible. Highly unlikely, but possible. And it's a terrible break, and lovely people ring the ambulance, and the ambulance comes, and the man goes, oh, that looks bad, but we'll get you there. And they take me to the hospital, and they go, look, Mr. Elwell, we've got some great news, and we've got some not so great news. I'm like, what's the not so great news? And they go, let's give you the great news first. There's a bloke in here. The greatest leg surgeon in the world lives in Birmingham. And he's here today, he can mend your leg, it's all cool. Like, by the way, if he doesn't, you could die. It's pretty bad. Like, you've even got an artery, like, this is not good, so we need to get it mended. But the bloke that can mend it is here, so it's all good. The bad news is, the NHS went bust this morning, and he wants £1 million. what am I going to do? What am I going to do? See, my situation's so bad that if I haven't got a spare million knocking about, I've got to go, right, well, I must mend my leg, otherwise I might die. So who else can I possibly involve to get the £1,000,000? What deal can I do? How could I possibly finance it? My brain straight away starts to think for possibilities. I start to create options because I must get my leg mended. So again, you go, if somebody's just buying on price, it's going to be painful. You got to go, look, I appreciate you feel it's more than you want to spend. So let me ask you a question. Let's throw money away. Other than money, give me 5 reasons why this is a good deal to you. This is called value. Let's understand the value of the deal, not just the money. Money is part of the deal. Now, the other thing I'd challenge, if people see it as money or cost, I prefer to use the word investment. If you're investing in solving a problem, if you're investing in getting even better results than you're getting now, if you're investing in mending something or getting a result, you understand that there's a financial commitment, but you also understand that there is a psychological commitment, there is a spiritual commitment, there is a attitude commitment. You know, to get great results with other people, they need to do things differently than they were doing before. Otherwise they'll get the same result. And of course there's a financial investment, but it's all the other things, the commitment to changing what they're doing now to get a better result is the investment as much as the money aspect. So whenever you build a deal, if you want long-standing deals that make sense, get people results, are a win for them, win for you, win for the universe, you must be searching for value other than money as much as possible at the beginning of the sales process, so that when you get to the close, for them it's a logical next step to give you the business because it's valuable to them, not just financially. So those are the key 3 fears that we hear. I know there's loads more, so if you've got other fears that we haven't covered in this video, pop them in the comments box below. Remember, the way you deal with fear is firstly a choice, and that's interesting to know, and more importantly, when you've got techniques, structured techniques, and that's what I teach, that's the way you get over them. So please post in the box, because once you get over fear in selling, like what happens if they say this, everything changes when you've got just simple strategies and techniques that you can flip over and then continue to serve people. It is a game changer. So comment in the box and I'd love to help you. In this video, we're going to answer the simple question, how do I sell a product to anyone? Great question. Well, the first thing is, nice and simple, you got to find out what do they need. If you don't know what somebody needs, how can you possibly sell anything to them? So the first thing you must find is like, what do you need from me? Now, how I enhance that question, how I work it so that it sort of creates qualification towards my message is I'll use questions such as, so what do you need when it comes to closing more deals? So I don't just ask what do you need. It's really important that you frame the question so the question has a purpose. This is really important. So let me give an example of a general poor question that stops you selling to anyone. What's your biggest challenge right now? See how it's so massively varied, it's not framed in any way, shape or form. It doesn't connect with an outcome that I actually specialise in. So I specialise in closing. So my question would always be, what do you need right now when it comes to your sales process, and more importantly, closing more business? That's a great question so that you can sell anything to anybody. You just have to make sure there's a connotation, an outcome, a reason why they should answer it that brings them towards your message. That's really, really important. The other thing is you can ask qualification questions such as, what is it that you've heard or seen about my product or service that when implemented would either get you an accelerated result or solve a problem in your business right now? The power of that question is a qualification outcome question.
That's what it's called, qualification outcome question. So you're qualifying through a question that has an outcome to you being a solution to a problem that they have, and when implemented, it would solve that problem. Just one powerful question changes everything, and that is how you can sell anything to anyone, anytime. Let me ask you a question. Post the comment in the box. What's the question that you ask, or how do you and your team sell anything to anybody right now? Let me see what the answer is, and let's see if we can communicate and try and make it even better than it is right now. And by the way, who do you know right now who would benefit from this? It might be a team member. It might be somebody in administration or accounts, somebody else within the organisation that would benefit from quality language, from understanding foundationally how to close. And bearing in mind, closing is not just about sales. Closing is about what's the logical next step that we should take, and then close that, lock it down. And lastly, subscribe and ping the notification bell so that you get this free training every week. And of course, on this side of the page, there's a number of other videos that you can click on to get more free training.